It was 1960, so that probably means I was about 27, I guess.
27 years old.
I think that's right.
And what in your mind said, "Oh, I want to be a fireman"?
The fire department during that era was probably the most prestigious thing that you could join in a small town like Manassas was at that time.
Right.
But just about everybody really wanted to be a member of the Manassas Fire Department.
Right.
And if you go down the list, you'll see that all the prominent family members and guys that were active in business joined the fire department. And
When I run down the list of mayors and town council and city council and streets around the city, they're all on this plaque, or they've all been here a part of this fire company. And it was like to do anything in this small town back before 1976, everybody came here. This was like the place to be, was the fire company. How many applications did you have to put in?
I had put in 2.
2 applications.
Right.
So you got denied the first time.
The first one I put in, I found out afterwards they wanted to make sure that you really wanted to join, so they turned you down on the first one to see if you'd put the second one in. Yeah, even when I was a kid, I always run up there when the alarm went off. I didn't have a car, so I had to run up there.
Right.
And if it was late at night, I didn't even dress. I just run up there in my underwear.
After the process, after you got the application, where did you guys have to get your helmets and your coats and your gloves? Where did you go to get that stuff?
Gene Davis, he always handled the rubber raincoats and hip boots. When we first joined, they would all let us go up there and get them from them. But after 2 or 3 years, they started getting the regular stuff.
Oh, okay. So you used to have to actually go to where his store was to get that?
Yeah, local store.
And what was that, like a hardware store?
No, it was a clothing store.
A clothing store?
Yeah, Gene and Mr. Davis, he always had agreement with the chief that he would keep stuff in supply if we needed it.
Do you even know where all your stuff is that you used to wear? Do you have it? Do you know where your stuff is?
No, I don't have it, no.
You don't? Mr.
No.
Merchant, do you have all your helmets and stuff?
No.
No? You just left?
No, when they ran me away, they didn't let me take anything with me.
I have my helmet.
You do?
Yes, and it was a hand-me-down.
It was. Do you remember whose it was before you?
I believe he was a preacher.
Oh, okay.
Back in those days, one of the clergymen, I think, ran fires. Am I right on that? You all remember that?
Well, the one I had was square.
That'd be
Anyhow,
square.
it was a hand-me-down, and I still have it.
You still have it?
Yeah.
But not your coat, your gloves,
No.
or your boots or
No.
anything?
I lived over on Ware Street, and I could get here before the whistle quit blowing
Oh, okay.
in the middle of the night. You can't do that today
Right.
because of traffic and traffic lights and everything. I mean, I could do that, just run a few stop signs and could be here quick. That's one of the things that necessitated having people here at night later in the years, because you couldn't get that many people here that fast in the middle of the night.
So when the calls would go out, how did they tell you guys that there was a call back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s?
Well, they had sirens, different areas of the city.
Okay.
And where I lived, they had one about one block, half a block from where the house was. So it rocked everybody out of bed when that thing went off.
Well, before I went to bed, I always laid out, depending on the weather, I laid out a shirt. If it, if it was cold, a heavy shirt, and pants on beside the bed, and shoes.
Right.
And siren went off, I'd jump up and put them on and never turn the light on.
So when that would happen, who would set those alarms off? I don't even know. Did somebody have to come here? Did somebody get called? How did they even know?
Switchboard did it, telephone company.
Oh, okay.
The operator, they did it the old-fashioned way. They had one little old switch there on the switchboard that they would throw the handle.
No matter what the call was. So somebody
Didn't ma-
called the switchboard
Right,
and the siren would go off, no matter if
Right.
it was a big house fire, a grass fire, or
Right.
anything.
In the early days, most of them were fires, and then later on we started running with the rescue squad. So
So let me ask you, you bring up another point, 25 guys getting out of bed. How many times when you would show up here at the firehouse for a call that all the fire trucks would be gone and there wouldn't be a truck here for you to get on?
it didn't happen much to me, but it did happen to some.
Right.
But it was always a good turnout. I can't ever remember having to wait even in the middle of the night for the truck to leave because of lack of personnel.
Right.
Always had good turnout.
So when you joined, the fire company wasn't here where it's presently at. It was over at the old town
the
hall.
old town hall, that's
Right.
correct.
So you came over when the company came over.
Right.
The building, I guess, was built in '56. Is that right?
And Mr. Sweet, him and I came over at the same time.
Oh, okay. That's a long time ago, Mr. Robinson.
Yep.
Now the town's a lot bigger now. It's about 10 to 14 square miles. How big was the town when you guys were running the fire calls?
It was a small town.
Yeah,
It was a very small town.
everybody was close.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a lot of close folks.
yeah.
Well, it kept moving really because I guess one of the early lines was Sudley Road,
Right.
Then it moved out to Rebiank Drive, and then it moved on out to where it is today. But it has moved several times
Right.
in the last 50 years.
When you joined the fire company, did anybody ever feel like this was too dangerous of a job? This whole fire department thing. Like they came to you and said, "Do you want to go fight fire?" Did you ever feel scared about doing this job?
I never did. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah. Because I mean, back when you joined in the '40s, we were the fire department. We didn't have what we wear now. We didn't have all that extra protective clothing, the face masks and everything like that. So how did you go inside and fight fire if you didn't have all that stuff?
Well, you kind of, you just had to be very careful.
Yeah.
You know, you knew you weren't protected, but so much. You didn't want to try to exceed that or you would get hurt.
And the one that over at the old industrial school in the warehouse over there.
Right.
Yeah, we had corrugated metal
Right.
siding.
Right.
We got a couple of them off and to hold them up in front of us for the heat and putting the hose around them.
So hang on for a second. You were holding a shield so you could fight fire.
Yeah. Corrugated metal siding, you know.
Well, that's all right, Captain America. I didn't know that anybody could still do that. I wish I could do that.
Hey, we were using anything we could to keep cool.
It's the type of thing when you're a young person, and most of us were young when we got into this. You think you're you're invulnerable, and then you go to a fire sooner or later where you get the hell scared out of you,
Right.
and then it comes home to realize that this could have been bad news. But as a rule, I don't think you think about it.
We had good training back in those days, sort of one-on-one training. We weren't as big as they are now. But I never felt insecure on a fire because there was always somebody there to help you.
Have you ever been to a fire that really scared you, that you didn't want to be at, that you felt like you shouldn't have walked away from?
Well, when I think of the Plains fire is the one that really made me think.
Of course, we had companies coming in from all around us. I'd say a radius of probably 25 to 30 miles. We had companies coming from as far away as Culpeper, Strasburg, Manassas.
A train had hit a tanker.
Oh, a train.
Yeah.
So the stuff in the train was on fire?
Not only that, but the surrounding stuff, when the tank exploded, it set the old buildings down on the low end by the tracks on fire.
That's the most traumatic fire I've been to.
Right.
It was very, very cold. The wind was blowing very hard. The hoses froze to the street. We had to take tools to pry them up to move them, and the whole time an old boiled tanker, gas tanker, was sitting there on the track, engulfed in flames, and you could see the silhouette of the driver still in the cab.
Oh, wow.
And then the sparks blew into the lumber yard, And there was a 3-story old building there, a shingle roof building. And Jimmy and I climbed up on the roof. We thought we would maybe ventilate it and see if we could put some water down there. And we were about halfway across the roof, and Jimmy said, "Quentin, go get on the ladder." I said, "Okay." I went and got on the ladder, and he was right behind me. He said, "Get on down." We got down, and before we got to the ground, the part of the roof caved in.
This company here in the city of Manassas went all the way to Fauquier County. How long did it take you to get out there?
Oh, God, I couldn't tell you how long it took.
Long
All
time.
I can tell you is when I got in that truck and they said planes, I floorboarded. That's all I can tell you.
Which truck did you take out there?
39 Chevrolet,
39 Chevrolet. And it had a pump on it.
had a pump.
Had a pump.
When the alarm went off, I think Frank Sweet and I were the first ones here at the fire company. And I forget who told us to take it wasn't a pickup, but what little vehicle we had. He and I drove up to that fire, and when I saw the flames coming up, I thought the whole town would go. But that was one of the most dangerous type fires I've ever been on. He was a good man, I'll tell you that.
Good man.
Yes, sir.
Don't know if you can do it in one word. Still was a good guy,
Yeah.
and he wore a lot of hats.
Yeah.
He was vice mayor. He'd been on the city council for a long time. Great athlete. Held different positions in the fire department.
He was a great guy, number one.
Right.
I worked for him, and when he became a member and he was elected chief, he was a good chief. He really was.
Right.
I had a lot of respect for him, and he knew what he was doing.
He was dedicated to this fire company. I mean, 100% totally dedicated. And every year that he wasn't chief, he was president. And I don't know how many years that covered, but he was chief when I came into the company.
I know him.
Yeah. Good man.
Yes, indeed, he was very recognized.
I don't remember what year it was, but we got the first fire truck, a new truck, that had door locks.
Okay.
And up until that time, the doors weren't locked. And we went to a fire on Grand Avenue one night, right up next to Norman Realty. And Stewart was the chief and the officer in the truck, and I was driving it. And we got there, and he couldn't get out the truck.
It was locked in.
It was locked, and he didn't realize the door was locked. He thought it was jammed. And I want to tell you, that was the damnedest racket that you ever heard of one man trying to get out of a fire truck with a locked door.
I know more good things about him than bad things, I'll tell you that.
You do.
Yes, sir.
Wade was a great guy, and he worked with me a lot on some things. And of course, I was a pump operator and driver, and he always told me that he felt comfortable when I was on the pumper.
Right.
And kind of an outstanding person, as far as I'm concerned,
Sure.
and an officer.
Yes, I do, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
We were laughing earlier when he came in the company as a paid man.
Right.
All the fire companies wanted help. They didn't particularly want a fireman. They wanted somebody to wash their trucks and take care of stuff. And some of them had a hard time adjusting to that.
Right.
But Wade did a pretty good job of adjusting to that, because a lot of times he got left behind. Here he was, the paid professional fireman in the fire company, and he'd get left behind if plenty of people showed up. So it was a growing process.
He was another good man, and he's a runner-up to the one we just talked about. But he was a great guy to everybody.
Right.
He was a good friend, and he would never tell you to ask you to do something that he wouldn't do himself.
Good fireman?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. That's my right.
Yeah. Good fireman?
Yes, indeed.
He's probably one of the best firefighters that I ever knew.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He could I used to tell him he could just smell where the fire was and go to it. But Jimmy had another trait that probably was his greatest. He had a trait of making everyone he knew think, believe that they were one of his closest best friends.
Well, it was always been number one with me,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So were you in the company before him?
Oh, Lord have mercy, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think he was even born when I come in.
Oh, Jimmy Rice,
Yeah. Look at that young picture.
the one and only. We used to call him Minute Rice
Minute Rice.
Yeah.
Why'd you call it Minute Rice?
because he was quick.
Yeah.
He was fast.
Getting on the trucks,
Everything,
going to fires.
everything. He was primarily responsible for me joining the fire company.
Right.
He talked me into it, or not. He didn't have to talk very much, but he convinced me it was a good idea. And after being in the company a while and around him, I realized that he had a really sixth sense about a fire. He could almost predict what it was going to do and where it was going. And so I got smart and stayed close to him all the time so we'd know when to move.
You around for this fire? Looks like they're rescuing some people out of a window, and it's got Fireman Orrin Klein here. And it looks like
Yeah, that's the one, down the Windricks, I believe.
Yeah, upstairs
Yes,
there,
sir, I do remember that.
yeah.
where Walter Akers lived,
Yeah.
up top of the.
Right.
So tell me about that fire. Do you remember getting a call for that?
I wasn't on that call.
Because you're there pulling people out of windows, Mr. Klein.
Yes, I don't remember the full of it, but I remember I was at the shop at the time, and I
Right.
got here pretty quickly after the alarm went off.
Right.
But,
And do you remember seeing people hanging out of windows
Yes,
and coming
yes.
down out of windows?
Yep.
Who's riding in the front seat?
That's Jack Martin.
Jack Martin.
Yep, and who's that driving? Is that you, Jimmy, driving?
That is Mr. Robinson driving that
I
thing.
thought. And Ralph Powell was on there, and I don't catch that other guy. You know that it is.
Jim Rhodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How old were you there, Mr. Robinson?
I don't remember.
Yes, you do.
But I moved out to where I am, still live today, which is 8/10 of a mile out of city limits. Back in those days, if you went out more than a mile, well, you couldn't be a member. But I was at 8/10 of a mile. But I couldn't hear the siren blow, especially at night. When the fire alarm would go off at night, Stuart Vedder's wife would call me and say, "Fire wheels are blowing." That's all she'd say, "Fire wheels are blowing," and I'll hang up the phone and take off.
And you jump in the car
Yeah.
and come up here.
So Stuart and his wife kept me going in the fire company after I moved out there in the country, so to speak.
I've always felt it was a sad day for Manassas when they stopped blowing the fire sirens here.
Right. I remember that as a kid. That used to
Yeah,
go off every day at lunch.
the telephone operator sat at a console in the building down next to the pavilion, and the calls came in to their switchboard, and they then knew exactly where the fire was, and they had a little button that Jimmy said they pushed, and they actually rang the siren so many cycles.
Right.
And I worked for the phone company for a while, and so did Jim, and I recall that when a call would come in and they'd start to blow the sirens,
Right.
the whole switchboard would light up.
Everybody was
Because
complaining.
everybody coming in, no, everybody's coming in to calling in to find out where the fire was.
Oh, I
Because
got
you got to remember then, it wasn't like it is today. I mean, everybody knew everybody, and you were serious about who had the fire. And at some point in time, and I think it was, I don't remember when they stopped blowing the siren, but probably in what, 70s? I don't remember when it was, but I always felt it was some folks who had moved to town and didn't like being awakened in the middle of the night with the siren blowing. And I always felt kind of rubbed about that, because I felt if there was 25 or 30 guys that were going to get out of their warm bed and come out on a cold winter night and fight a fire for nothing. And that everybody else ought to be willing to listen to a siren blow 10 or 12 times in the night that they could go back to sleep.
So what do you remember the best about this fire company?
Well, I remember the worst fire that I was on was the old theater fire.
Which was that? Was that the pits?
Yeah, the Pitts Theater was set on fire by a Waters boy. And that was one of the worst ones that I've been on.
Right. Now, when you went over there to fight that fire, you drove and everything, that nobody got hurt on that fire?
No, somebody else had beat me to the driver's seat, but I had to run up there.
Jim was driving the truck, and Raymond Davis was the chief. He's in the chief seat. Turner Wheeling's on the running board on the far side. Judd Holmes is on this side. Then there's Stewart, Warren Hover, Wallace Hook, Buddy Moore, Judge, Frank Hoss.
Yeah.
And Jim Rhodes and Jim Sineath and this other guy, I can't see who that is.
What happened with the grain fire? Where was that?
That was just to the west of the pavilion,
Okay.
Harris Pavilion.
Right.
It was an old building and had wheat chaff and straw lying all around, and of course, which was asking for fire. And
Right.
but it happened late at night for some reason, and it burned so quickly we couldn't save much of it.
What's your greatest memory of being a member here? When you were running calls, was it a fire, just the people? What's your greatest memory?
Well, the camaraderie was number one. We were really a close-knit unit back in those days, and still are, really.
Right.
But back in those days, we seemed to have more time to be with one another and share our stories and everything.
Mr. Sweet, what's your fondest memory of this fire company?
I like the band too, but I spent a lot of time
Right.
at the early part as a mechanic,
Oh, okay.
and go from engine to engine and see, check made to do everything it needed to be done.
Well, I could narrow it down to one because we had some times, but one of the things that was kind of unique, it was not unusual for us to have a fire in the middle of the night and get back from the fire call and wash up and get in the car and drive to Fairfax and have breakfast or have something to eat and over to Centerville, because there was nothing open here at night where you could do that. And we used to do that a lot. But I think Orrin hit the nail on the head. It was a close-knit group that got along well, and it was just a pleasure to be a member here.
On April 30th, 1892, the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company was established. Just 22 years after the town of Manassas was first incorporated, the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company was formed to serve the town and the surrounding area. For the past 125 years, the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company has held true to that commitment. Prior to 1892, the residents of the town assembled a collection of buckets and ladders stored under the train station platform. As the town grew, the need for adequate fire protection increased. The town council approved the purchase of a 4-man piston pump, and the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company was created. D.H. Prescott was placed in charge of the equipment and coordinated the volunteer firefighters. In 1905, Manassas suffered its first major fire. A 2-block section of downtown was engulfed in flames, for which the cause is still debated. Despite the valiant efforts of the volunteer firefighters, the 4-man hand pump was just not up to the job. Due to this major fire, the town council decided in 1909 to purchase a gasoline-driven pump mounted on a horse-drawn carriage, the fire company's first true fire engine. Along with this purchase, money was allocated to build the company's first ladder truck, a horse-drawn wagon with ladders, buckets, and axes, as well as a hose cart to support the new engine. The fire company still has this engine and hose cart today on display in the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company Museum. With the construction of a new town hall in 1915, the first floor was dedicated to house the fire equipment and 2 jail cells, while the second floor was the town council's meeting room. The 2-bay structure held the engine and ladder wagons and served as a rallying point for volunteers to respond to incidents. This facility was used until 1956. This building is known as Harry J. Parrish Town Hall, located next to City Hall in Old Town. In 1929, the town took delivery of the first motorized fire engine in all of Prince William County as a result of an emergency purchase. Made by the Buffalo Fire Appliance Corporation, this unit served the town and the county for many years and was the only motorized fire engine in Prince William County until 1932. This engine still belongs to the fire company and has been fully restored using donated funds, and too is on display in the Manassas Fire Company Museum. In 1947, the fire company took delivery of a new fire engine, and for the first time, the fire company moved to 2 first-out engines due to the growth of the town. In 1948, the fire company incorporated as a non-profit corporation, and in 1956, the fire company moved to its present location. This building, constructed by the fire company, provided a large space for the operation and storage of the company's first-out and reserve apparatus. In 1969, Prince William County purchased a new Seagrave ladder truck and was placed at Fire Station 1. Cared for and operated by the members of the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company, this was the first ladder truck in the town since 1909. On January 2, 1969, Prince William County hired its first 9 career firefighters. Life member, past president, and chief, Wade House, was the first career firefighter assigned to the town of Manassas. 46 years later, Wade is still going strong to his commitment to the community and is currently employed as the deputy chief for the City of Manassas Fire and Rescue Department. Since that time, the building and the fire company have experienced numerous changes, additions, and improvements. Today, the Volunteer Fire Company has expanded to over 150 volunteer members, including an active auxiliary membership, operates 4 mainline engines, a ladder truck, and several support apparatus in cooperation with the City of Manassas Fire and Rescue Department, which currently employs 54 firefighter EMTs and medics. The City of Manassas Fire and Rescue System, which is a true combination system comprised of volunteer and career staff, is still committed to be a model combination system recognized as a leader in the fire and rescue service at the local, state, national, and international level. One thing has never changed: the drive and dedication of the members of the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company to serve and protect the citizens of the City of Manassas and Prince William County.